Sunset slow, hey, you know you should stay for the night. What you think? One more drink while we sit by the bonfire. 'Cause this might be love. It's a feeling that I can't get rid of. So just take my hand, 'cause you know I don't wanna play pretend. Chance, baby, roll the dice. Gotta give me some love, 'cause when I'm with you, I'm in paradise. You know how to make me feel alive. Gotta give me some love, nah, nah. Gotta give me some love, nah, nah, nah. Gotta give me some love, nah, nah, nah. You gotta give me some love, nah, nah, nah. Gotta give me some love, nah, nah, nah.
What's up, guys? I'm Joshua Bardwell. Y'all ready to learn? Ooh, I changed the music out tonight. Some of you guys have been paying attention. The last song was about 4 minutes long exactly, and so I would start it at 7:56. And at 3 minutes to the hour, some of you guys are going, hey, where's the music? This one's shorter. But credit to all you guys for paying such close attention to my stream. Hold on. Damn it. Hold on. Oh, man, I did it now. Sorry, I was still uploading. I recorded the 3D printer review. I've recorded that today, and the footage was still uploading, and I saw my stream stuttering. Give it a second. Give it a second. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It's so clear, too. Sorry. It's coming back. It's coming back. So, yeah, did you, I don't usually, you know, we're not going to do like a popcorn and props thing, right? But did you guys see this?
Chad, don't you have a Dremel tool? I need a Dremel.
I think David has it.
Bardwell, I cannot find any of the Dremels here. Didn't you? You had one the other day, right?
Yeah, David took it.
Tyler, do you have one?
I think David took it.
David, I've been looking all over for the Dremels. I need a Dremel tool. Can I get that one?
I'm using it.
No, you have like everyone's Dremel tool. You took like 5. Would you turn that off? You have like 5 Dremel.
Them.
All of them?
Yes.
You can't possibly be using 5 Dremel tools. Give me one of them.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Hold on. Hold on. Yes, we did. Yes. Oh, where's a good still image? There, that's fine. Yes, we did. Did you? If you didn't see that, I don't usually go out of my way to say, oh, go watch this other video. But yes, I'm so proud of this episode. I'm so proud of this episode. I want this episode to go viral. I mean, that's what better? They made a freaking... It flies. It's amazing. I can't believe it. Oh, yeah, that's all David Vindestall, too. He is a madman, and any episode with him in it is a good one. So, yeah, check that out. Even if you don't normally watch Rotor Riot, that episode came out today. It's super exciting. What else can we talk about? Because I always like to start. Let me just be clear. What are you doing here? There you go. Yeah, Billy Hackett says Dremel should have sponsored it. David actually reached out to them and asked if they wanted to sponsor the episode. And the first thing they said was, oh, that's pretty cool. Hold on, let me run it up to the management. And then the second thing they said was, management doesn't want anything to do with this. Management doesn't want to be part of using Dremel tools in an unsafe way. But the guy David talked to personally thought it was amazing. But Dremel was not going to sponsor it, so oops. This is a Q&A live stream. I'm going to be answering your questions. In case you're new here, that's pretty much what I do. Like Savo Spray, SV Osprey wants to know where I get my t-shirts. Most of my t-shirts come from Quadbox. I have a Quadbox subscription, and one of my favorite things about Quadbox is you get a t-shirt in every one. They're usually interesting, original designs, and when you consider that you pay $20 for a $25 for a Teespring t-shirt, that's like half the price of the Quad box. So if you're into t-shirts, that's where I get most of mine. And I don't really like to go shopping for clothes. So it's great because it keeps my shirts fresh. See, that's how we do it, Q&A. But before we do the Q&A, I like to do a little bit of sort of news of the day. And there are a few things going on in the news. One of the things that's happened is there's a new firmware update for the DJI system, and super exciting. Number one, I haven't verified this because it just came out today, but it says that it fixes the issue with latency in the analog input, the AV input, and it also adds like 15 different OSD elements that it gets from Betaflight. So currently, if you're using DJI, you can get battery voltage, and that's it. But with a new one, adds things like RSSI and just a bunch of other OSD elements. So super cool to see that, and I think it's going to help. You can get GPS coordinates. It's going to really help make DJI just that little bit easier to use. It's one of the few things about the system that I still didn't like. I mean, there's things to not like about it. There's a lot to like about it. But one of the things I didn't like about the DJI system was that you gave up the Betaflight OSD like completely. Well, you don't have the whole OSD, but you have a lot more than you used to, and that's pretty freaking exciting. And not to go on a big political tear, but I think when DJI first moved into this space, a lot of people are or were scared, some of them still are, that they intended to just sort of wipe this table with everybody and own the space, as opposed to sort of playing nice. And I think when I first heard DJI was going to make the FPV system, I thought all they have to do is make their own flight controller and make the DJI system compatible with only their flight controller, and then all other flight controllers will just take a huge hit. And for those of you who are like, what? No, do you know how easy it would be for them to make their own flight controller? If they didn't have the resources in-house to do it, they could just hire 5 Betaflight devs full time for $50,000 a year, and it's a drop in a decimal point bucket for them. My point is, when they didn't make their own flight controller, but instead they made it compatible with the existing flight controllers, I went, maybe they intend to play nice. And then now that they've added all this stuff to the OSD, it's another sign that kind of like they're playing nice, and that's kind of nice. We can't talk about DJI and latency without throwing a mention to RC Shim. Now, I always assume that everybody knows who everybody is, right? But RC Shim, if you don't know who he is, he does some really excellent technical testing. See that oscilloscope behind him? See, I don't have one of those. And he did some latency testing of the DJI system and found two really, like, here's the video, so you can check his video out. RC Shim. There he is. One of the things he found out was that, yes, latency of the AV input is, like, all over the place. And that supposedly is fixed in this firmware update. The other thing he found is that if you switch from low latency to high quality mode and you don't power cycle, latency is really, really high. So that's very interesting. If you have traditionally flown in low latency on your DJI system, and then one day you decided to try high quality and it was really bad latency, that's why. So thank you to him for coming up with that. All right, enough about that. What else? What else happened today? Let's see here. Any other news? Oh, yeah. You see back on the table, I got something. I'll show you the clip from my Instagram. What? Okay, I thought I was about to see something not appropriate for the live stream for just a minute there. I was like, why did that happen? Really, I don't follow any of those pages. I promise. No. Yeah, so I got a DJI Mavic Mini, so I'm excited to play with that. You may have seen that on my Instagram. And I went out to fly it, and it was really windy, and it was too windy, but I couldn't resist flying it. And so, yeah, this is how windy it was. Mavic Mini, that's right, Sabine. And I flew it up into the sky, and oh, it's going so well. Look how good the position hold is. Wait a minute. Am I drifting a little bit? Oh my God, I'm drifting. Ah! That's the wind. I'm not doing that. That's the wind. And then I dropped the throttle all the way down and I pinned full pitch forward and I recovered it so it didn't lose it to the wind, but then I did this. Oh, yeah, okay. So, yeah, pretty classic, right? Your first day with a Mavic, you almost lose it in the wind, and then you crash it in a tree. So, alrighty. So that's what's going on with me this week. Yeah, very exciting. What about you guys? Let's get some questions from you guys. And how did I get it out of the tree? Asks Redbeard. It wasn't as high as you think. I just shook the tree. It did not take any damage. This is one of the things that made me get the Mavic Mini when I didn't get any of the other Mavics before it. It's so small and light that actually it's way more crashable than the previous ones. So I crashed Ken. Yeah. Ken Heron, pardon me, Ken Heron, he is a YouTuber. He came over to my house and we did a video together about my first DJI flight. Here he is at my house. You can go check his channel out if you want. I'm not going to ruin his video by showing you the whole video, but, oh, it calls me a legendary FP. That's very nice. Yep, my video's coming soon, but here we are. Yeah, I got to fly his Mavic Mini. This was his. I also got to fly his Inspire. I did not crash it, so that was nice. Yeah, so go check out Ken's channel a little later after the live stream if you want to see that. So, Devil Bob FPV, am I 3D printing yet? Yes, I am, Devil Bob. I had some samples. They're behind me on the desk, so I'm not going to go get them. But, yeah, I had some samples of things I've printed before. And I mean, obviously with 3D printing, there's always room to improve, but I have printed a functional TPU GoPro mount. So I feel like that's like, okay, I crossed a threshold. I actually recorded my review of the Sovol SVO1 3D printer today. So that should hopefully come out this week. Yeah. Do I still like the Jumper T16? Yes, I do. Yep, Bob L. I do like the Jumper T16 just as much as I ever did. I'm really looking forward to OpenTX finally releasing the version that supports the Jumper T16 permanently. There are a few things that are a little tricky to do if you don't have access to Companion. And right now, if you connect to Companion and write models to the jumper, it erases all your models. So don't do that. Nico Dascombe, I watched all your videos and my quad won't arm. What do I do? Nico, the answer is that you need to get the arming status code. Whenever Betaflight won't arm, it has an arming status code. You can get it out of the OSD. If you have the warning OSD element turned on Betaflight 4.0 and 4.1, that element is on by default. On earlier versions, you had to turn it on. So you can also go to the CLI and type the word status. And that will, one of the things status will show you is the arming status codes. Once you know the status code, I have a playlist. I have a playlist called Betaflight Won't Arm, and it has an entry in the playlist for all of the status codes telling you how to troubleshoot them. So that's the answer. John Camilleri. A very interesting question. John wants to know, do you think that the isolated gyros, like on the Kakute flight controller, work better than the regular rubber grommets? John, that's so John's referring to, well, the Kakute is really the main one that does it. I don't actually know any others that do it today. They have the gyro isolated on a chip. Well, that's not true. I take it back. The Kakute has the gyro isolated on a circuit board with a piece of foam tape to provide a vibration isolation. There are some others that put the gyro chip in a gel layer covered by like an acrylic cover. I think that works well. Does it work better than having gummies? That's hard to say. The thing with vibration isolation is you want enough, but not too much. So in most cases, the gummies do the job. At which point, having a big complicated soft mounting for the chip is overkill. Yeah, the rotor. That's right. So I was thinking about the way the Kakute does it with tape, and I don't think anybody else does that. But as you guys are pointing out, Airbot, the Omnibus Fireworks, the DYS Rotorite flight controller, they all have the gel layer with the acrylic cover. So Boxy189 wants to know, how do I fix my smart audio? It only comes up with StatX. Boxy, it's not working. That's the first thing you know when you see StatX. So you need to get your wiring right. You need to wire to the UART TX pad, and you need to use the smart audio wire from your video transmitter. You need to go to the ports tab in Betaflight and enable smart audio peripheral for whichever UART you wired to. So if you wired to TX3, then you would use UART3 smart audio. And at that point, it should work. So if it's not working, it's either your wiring or your configuration. And obviously, without looking over your shoulder at your quad, I can't tell you which it is, but that's what we do know. Caesar FPV wants to know, my OSD fades out when I punch the throttle. And Bubby FPV wants to know, how come when I give throttle, my video gets black lines through the screens? These are actually the same problem manifesting in two different ways. What's happening is that as you raise throttle, the ESCs are creating electrical noise. Noise is the word for it. I'm trying to think of a better way to explain it. It's just electrical voltage going up and down, being caused by the ESCs and the motors pulling on the power supply. And the reason it happens when you raise the throttle is that as the motors get to higher RPM, the ESCs draw more current and create more noise. The first thing to do if you're having video noise or your OSD fading out, you can start with a capacitor, as Caesar suggests. For 4S, you might use a 25 volt 1000 microfarad is pretty standard if you're going to have just one capacitor, and put that on the XT60 or on the ESC where the battery wires connect. That's going to help, but it might not fix everything. Another thing you can do is you can move the ground wire. So your camera and your video transmitter both have a ground wire. If you move those to the same place on the flight controller. So take the camera's ground wire, solder it right on top of the VTX's ground wire. Sometimes that helps. If your video transmitter has a 5-volt regulator, you can power the camera off the video transmitter's regulator instead of off the flight controller. Sometimes that helps. There's like a bunch of things you can do to troubleshoot video noise, and not one of them is guaranteed to work. You just have to try all of them. Nix wants to know in the Discord, in case you're... Oh, I didn't do the thing where I show you guys my screen. Here's my screen. I got the pleb chat up here. All you guys following along on YouTube. I got super chats down here. Don't worry, super chats. I'll get to you in a minute. And I got my Discord server over here for my patrons. Hang on, Nix. I saw another question I want to get before I get to you, Nix. I won't forget you. Nordic Rage Gamer says, any tip for making the Larva X more durable? Yeah, the Larva X. I have a review of the Larva X up. I think it flies great, but it has problems with durability. Let me find a picture of the Larva X. The problem with the Larva X is that the flight controller and the VTX don't securely seat on these standoffs. And one of the problems is that they can pop out and they can short circuit against each other. There is a 3D printed... I've done it now. I can't find it. The picture's gone. There's a 3D printed thing you can print that goes in between the VTX and the flight controller and keeps them from touching each other. That is well worth doing and increases the durability of that quad. I recommend it. Okay, Nix, are there any advantages or disadvantages to using channel 4 of Crossfire receiver for smart audio instead of the flight controller UART? The advantage, so what Nix is talking about is if you have a TBS Unify or presumably any other smart audio video transmitter, you can connect smart audio to the flight controller, or you can connect smart audio to pin 4 of the receiver and control it that way. And the obvious intent of this is that what if you're using a wing without a flight controller, just a good old, flying wing or fixed wing craft, and you don't have a flight controller? You could still control your video transmitter via the Crossfire system, and that's the purpose. The advantage of this on a quad is, I think, debatable. Because if you connect the video transmitter to the Crossfire receiver, the Betaflight OSD cannot control it anymore. The Betaflight Lua script can't control it anymore. The Betaflight configurator, I doubt it, although I haven't confirmed this. In the configurator, if you got the video transmitter tab, and you can, so you're basically cutting Betaflight off from the video transmitter. In that case, you use the Crossfire system to control it instead. So if you have the Crossfire, the full-size module, you could use the joystick, and there's a menu in there where you configure the VTX. Some people prefer to have it in there. Personally, I would take the flight controller every time unless there was some compelling reason to do it through the Crossfire system. I think I'd rather have the option to have OSD, Lua script, and all those other things. Ben Trey says, yeah, you gain the UART back. Right. So if I was out of UARTs and had no other way to do it, the next thing I would do is I would try soft serial. And I would try to use, because that still lets the flight controller control it. But if you're out of UARTs and you can't do soft serial, this is a good fallback. Or if you don't have a flight controller at all, like in a fixed wing, then that's a great way to do it. But other than that, to me, I wouldn't do it. Odyssey FPV is trying to figure out, I get the menu, I get the smart audio menu, but it won't let me change the power. Odyssey, if you're on Betaflight 4.1, if you haven't set the VTX table up correctly, Betaflight 4.1, smart audio doesn't work out of the box. If you've loaded the wrong VTX table or anything like that, you will be talking to the video transmitter, but you won't be able to change the output power. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know. 661 FPV wants to know if there's a chart somewhere to refer to for antenna length tuning. That's a tough one, 661 FPV, because you can't just take the length, the wavelength, and divide by 4 and cut the cable to that length. You have to take into account the propagation velocity, or they call it the velocity factor, of the coaxial cable. So the speed that the signal moves through the coaxial cable affects the length that the cable needs to be, because it affects the wavelength of the signal on the cable. The faster it's moving, the longer the wavelength will be in the cable. When we think about the wavelength of a signal, we're typically thinking about the signal moving at the speed of light. But when it's in coax, it's not moving at the speed of light. It's moving at some fraction of the speed of light. So the velocity factor for various types of coax could be anywhere from 0.66 to 0.75. I'm not looking at the table. And when you calculate the tuning of the antenna, you have to take that into account. So perhaps somewhere there's a table, but most people who are building antennas, you need to know the velocity factor of the coax, and the table would have to have a bunch of different entries depending on what type of coax you're using. The actual way to do it is to use an antenna signal analyzer and just tune the antenna manually to take and not really rely on tables. But if all you do is you take the frequency, convert it to a wavelength, and you cut to that length, you probably are not correct. .661 FPV says, see my last comment on Albert Kim's video. He made a monopole Crossfire antenna. Well, that's interesting that he did that, but he might have done it wrong. Let's find out if he did it wrong. Cheapest Crossfire antenna. Okay, for micro drones, maybe it doesn't matter. Let's see if he did it right, though.
Alright, so a while back I made a video on how to secure your Crossfire antenna. It kind of gets in the way of everything. And for FCC regions, I think believe, this is tuned for 2.4 gigahertz using about 4 there.
Hang on, guys. Yeah. So he's going to cut it to the right length.
Come at the top. And so I'll put a link in the description. This is
Yeah.
not how far I can go.
Okay. So here's the mistake Albert made.
Put a zip tie through the canopy here. Let's go and...
Okay, so here's the mistake that Albert made, and I know this because I talked to Alex Grieve, I'd Be Crazy, about this a while back. I said, why can't we just use a monopole? And the answer is, when you look at a Crossfire antenna, it has two elements, and one of them is like the ground element, and one of them is the active element. And I'm going to find the conversation with Alex Grieve, because I'm going to get details wrong, but I'll bet you I can just show you guys the conversation and you can get the details right. The short version, hang on, is that you have to have that ground element hang on, I'm almost there. Okay. So here is Alex Grieve making a long-range whip antenna for Crossfire. I believe he made this video in response to my conversation with him. And he shows that the right way to do it, you have to have the grounding element the right length. You going to zoom in, Alex? It's very fiddly getting it tuned exactly right. No, I'm sorry, guys. Hang on. You have to fold back the sheath. See, look what he's doing here. You have to fold back the sheath, and this sheath right here that he's going to solder on takes the place of that little black ground element that's hanging off. And if you don't do that, I said to him, I still don't understand why we can't just use a monopole. I said dipole, that was a mistake. Why can't we just use a monopole whip like with 5 gigahertz? The 5 gigahertz antennas don't have a balancing element like Crossfire does. They're just a length of coax with a length of wire exposed. And he says the signal tracks down the cable and causes all sorts of problems. If you just have a 1/4 wave monopole, there's this big problem. So, yeah. So what Alex did is not, I mean, since you're flying Crossfire with a micro, you're probably not going very far and it probably doesn't matter. But there is a reason why you don't just make monopoles for Crossfire. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Here's the thing. Crossfire has so much freaking range that even though the antenna is like, I think Alex Grieve says it's like 20% efficient. Yeah. Yeah, he says monopole is 20% efficient. So even if Crossfire is 20% efficient, he's still going to get great range. So anyway, what Albert Kim did is not completely invalid, but also not completely correct either. Alrighty. INFPV wants to know if I'm daily driving the Orcas or the HDO2s. Both. No, both. I'm not going to pick one over the other at this point. They're both so good. So I'm really looking forward to getting the FPV Connect thing. Orca is supposed to send me the FPV Connect to do a beta of it. I'm looking forward to testing it. Okay. Oh my gosh, how have we gotten to a half hour into the stream and I haven't done any super chats? Super chats, I'm so sorry. Let's get super chats out of the way. Caney McStots, thanks for $5. Joshua, I'm a huge fan and have learned so much from you. Can you explain the background of the dress-looking pants that you wear? It's a sarong. It's not pants. It's just a wrap. There's no background. There's no cultural significance. It's just comfortable, and I like to wear it. That's the gist of it. Corey Schroeder, thank you for... I had hot wings for dinner, and I'm wondering if I've just made a terrible mistake. They seem okay. Corey Schroeder, thanks for $10. Are you sure you don't remember me? But I took your advice and ordered a Skyliner HD and goggles. Can't wait to have all that goodness. Stoked to have low latency analog as well. Thank you, Corey. I hope it works out for you. Thanks for $10. Caney McStots, thanks for $5 more. Have you heard about the DJI Air Unit issues not working with OSD? I haven't heard anything specific, Caney. If you don't have your MSP protocol set up right, then the Air Unit won't give you the OSD. But I haven't heard it. I haven't heard of any cases where it was like configured right and didn't work or had a bug. Ronnie King FPV, thanks for €5. When doing flips and rolls, my video feed goes to static for a couple seconds, then comes back. Okay, so static, Ronnie, static means that your video transmitter powered down. One of the things that can cause this, if you're powering it from a regulator, the regulator could be browning out when the motors, when you do a flip or roll, the motors draw a lot of current and the regulator could sag and brown out. And that can cause the video transmitter to go. If you're not powering your video transmitter from VBAT, try moving your video transmitter over to VBAT. That assumes that it can take VBAT. If it's a Unify Pro 5 volt, don't run it off of VBAT or you'll fry it. But I'm guessing that it's running off of 9 volts and you should move it to VBAT and see if that fixes it. If it is the regulator, just run it off of VBAT and you'll be fine. Arctic Drone, thanks for 22 Norwegian kroners. Why or why not reversed props? I have a video, props in versus props out, talking about in depth, but for 22 kroner, I don't even know how much 22 kroner is. I'll give you the short version. Props in versus props out, the differences in aerodynamic handling, I think, are negligible, except if you're running like down in the micro size, okay? Down in the tiny whoop size, props out can make a big difference. But once you're up to 3 inches, say, I don't think there's any noticeable difference that you would see in a blind test. So then the question is, do you want the props to throw dirt on your camera lens or into your stack? And that's the big difference. The props in throws dirt on the camera, props out throws dirt on the stack. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons to pick one versus the other. Double A, thank you for $5 in the super chat. Double A says, Joshua Bardwell, don't forget to get your MultiGP 2020 IO ticket. They are cheap today, and not many of the cheap ones left. Almost half price. Well, interesting that you say that. I saw this. Here's what I saw. Limited time Black Friday deal, IO, don't miss it tickets. And what's going on here? What's going on here? Oh, that's a good point. Phantom FPV, thank you. See, I should have just reference the video. Yeah, props out pushes you away from Scraggle, and props in pulls you into Scraggle. You're 100% right. Yeah. So going back to, thank you for Double A for the $5 super chat, which is why I'm mentioning this. Here's the wouldn't miss it ticket. What's going on here? What's going on? It looks like there's some shenanigans going on with golf carts. And I found this pretty ironic because I was at MultiGP IO. I was a little bit, I had a cough and I went to bed early, so I wasn't part of the shenanigans, but there were some shenanigans. And late night golf cart shenanigans, perhaps involving alcohol, I heard. At one point, somebody, before I left and went to bed, somebody said, hey, check it out. I pulled the regulator off this golf cart and now we're drifting it. Okay. And then somebody in the course of the late night shenanigans knocked over one of the gates and damaged the gate. And it caused a delay in the final day of racing. And so many people were out for blood. Out for blood. As if somebody, and I was like, you can't advertise an event as being like this awesome, raucous, crazy event. And then when somebody takes you up on it and gets a little crazy with a golf cart, act like they, kicked your puppy. So to see them here, hey guys, look how fun IO is. We're rocking with golf carts, guys. And then there was this one. Where's the unicorn? Where's the unicorn? There was another one with the unicorn. It's not here anymore. With the unicorn floaty. There was a lot of, someone stole a unicorn floaty from the TBS booth, and then it was like someone deflated it. No, who did it? We need Sherlock Holmes to figure out who's responsible for this so we can make reparations. It's a little, I was like, look, it's a good time. People had a good time. Take it easy. Anyway. Oh, okay. Questions. What do we got here? Odyssey FPV in the Discord says, your RC car video inspired me to cable tie my trash can to my son's RC car. Much fun was had. It's super fun, isn't it? Oh, FPV cars. On flat ground, FPV cars are fun. If you go too fast on rough ground, it's impossible it's just vomit inducing. You can't see anything. Thank you, Phantom FPV for $10 just for being awesome. Thank you, Dougie FPV for $2. I have a Tiny Hawk S. How do I fly like Johnny FPV? Dougie FPV, you do not fly like Johnny with a Tiny Hawk S. You need a 5-inch quad or a bigger quad, and you also need to be Johnny FPV. I assume your question was a joke. Thank you, Dougie FPV, for $2. Justin Bailick, thanks for $10. No question, just thanks. Yeah, Boyd, thanks for $5. Betaflight 4.0, 4.1 gave me the wobbles. Emu Flight's way more stable. Does this give you a hint as to what to tune in Betaflight for stability? Yeah, Boyd, I'll bet you that Mark Spatz, UAV Tech, who is in the chat, has some comments about Emu Flight versus Betaflight. Emu Flight is, I wonder if, I think what's going on is just different types of filtering, but I'm not sure I could tell you how to emulate Emu Flight in Betaflight with 4.1. Yeah. What kind of wobbles are you getting? That's the real question. I think you're probably referring to mid-throttle oscillation. Yeah, UAV Tech says try turning off D-min to begin with. That's what I was going to say. That is, too. That's really what I was going to say, I promise. D-min can sometimes induce wobbling at like just steady throttle, and try turning that off. Schmudge says Rotorite flatlining. When is Rotorite getting its mojo back? Schmudge, I assume you haven't been watching because you just gave up. I don't know. But if you haven't seen the latest Rotorite episodes, if you don't think that's mojo, get out of here. We power looped a $15,000 drone. We made a drone out of Dremel tools, and we power looped or flipped that. I just don't even know what to tell you. If that's not just completely awesome content, you know, I don't know what to talk. I don't know what you want. When is Rotorite getting its mojo back? The mojo never left. The mojo is just there. But if you think Rotorite lost its mojo, the last like 5 episodes, I'm just counting. The last few episodes have been insane. Jesus, flying an FPV drone on a roller coaster. This episode right here, mojo. This one, mojo. The Cinnabop one's pretty good too. Some good shit. If you don't like it, don't like it. But mojo is there. What do you think of the Flywoo motors? Asked Scott. I haven't tried them, Scott. Flywoo. Flywoo. There's a question going on in the Discord about batteries. I'm trying to get... no, it goes back too far. Sorry about that. My batteries are... Bags FPV... So they're talking about batteries sagging in cold weather. The thing is that it's only one quad is having the battery sag. Let's see. Me, myself, and I in the Discord wants to know if I've heard about this spike absorber. These things are called TVS diodes, and they are used to chop off the top of spikes. Now, I haven't heard about that, but I have done a video about TVS diode instead of capacitor, yes or no, because a while back, geez, May 2017, okay, it's been a while, Loose Transistor FPV made a video saying capacitors are dead, long-lived diodes. And I talked about why that was not necessarily true. TVS diodes can do some filtering in addition to capacitors, but they're not a replacement for capacitors. However, other people have pointed out that TVS diodes can add high-frequency transients, which can be a problem. I have steered away from TVS diodes. However, FETTech knows their business, and if they say that there's an advantage to putting this out, I've never known FETTech to put out any kind of stuff just for hype, right? So based on FETTech's reputation, I'd say that there's something to it. But until now, I have said that capacitors are really what you want, and TVS diodes are not really doing much. They're not the right choice. 507RC, I did talk about the DJI update. You just showed up late to the live stream, my friend. I have not missed Twidget's Super Chat. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Ooh, Odyssey FPV says Jumper T16 mod. Spin the grab handle on the Jumper T16 around 180 degrees. Makes it fit in bags better. I was just looking at how my jumper fit in my bag and wondering how to make it better. So I'll try that, Odyssey. Somebody, I missed who you were, but somebody asked, how is the website transition going, JB? This is my website. It's fpvknowitall.com. And it's the home of the ultimate FPV shopping list. But I recently transitioned this from Squarespace to WordPress. This is actually the WordPress. I have a new back end. How's it going? I don't know. I made the crossover this morning, and then I crossed my fingers, and nothing seems to have died yet. We have to do a link check still. And I finally don't have an excuse to add a whole bunch of products to the shopping list. I've been holding off adding products because I knew the website was going to go away. So now I have no excuse. Dusty for Nuts says it looks like Get FPV. I guess that's a coincidence. This yellow is the yellow from the Betaflight configurator, and I've sort of taken it as one of my signature colors. It's not intended to emulate Get FPV, but did I lose Amazon as an affiliate? No, Nathaniel. What I think you're seeing, Nathaniel, is here in the Support Me page, Amazon is not listed as an affiliate. The reason for that is that Amazon has a really strict terms of service about the use of their affiliate links. When you use Amazon affiliate links, you must only talk about the product. So you're not allowed to say I have to tell you what you're not allowed to say, but I can't say it. So, for example, with GetFPV, I would be allowed to say, you can support me by clicking my GetFPV affiliate links. But with Amazon, you can only talk about the product. You have to disclose. It's really tricky to get right. With Amazon, you have to disclose that it's an affiliate link. So you say, this is a product. It's a really good product. Here's why I think you should buy it. And if you want to buy it, here's my link. Oh, by the way, that's an Amazon affiliate link. Stop. You cannot say, and if you click that link, then you'll be helping me out. It means a lot to the channel. They don't want you to say that. And I think they don't want you to be spammy about it. But Amazon actually reached out to me and pointed out that having Amazon here on my page, which says support me, how to support me, that's a violation of their terms of service. So I still have Amazon as an affiliate. I'm just not allowed to put them here on this page. There you go. JD Jeremio wants to know, what's the best Cinewhoop setup? If you're thinking about getting a Cinewhoop, there are 3 that come to my mind, maybe 4. One of them is the Shendrone's Squirt. It's the original. Right? I don't know. It must be Andy Shen who helped come up with this, right? If it's not, then I'm surprised. He's so innovative. The Shendrone, anything Andy Shen makes, I have no problem recommending. He's a fantastic frame designer, a fantastic member of the FPV community for a long time. Shendrone Squirt, that's one of them. Not in no particular order. If you want a Shendrone Squirt and you don't want to build it yourself, Rotorride's actually building them. This is a Shendrone Squirt built and tuned by Rotoride. You can buy it pre-built. Another one, the iFlight Mega Bee. iFlight makes good quality stuff. Not premium, not like ultra premium, but, you know, good solid quality stuff at good prices. The iFlight Mega Bee, I haven't heard any real complaints about it. And then the third one, Holy Bro has Cinewhoop coming out. I don't even know if it's out yet, but Holy Bro has a pretty good history, and I would be okay with recommending that. Which is the best? I don't know about that. Cage Drummer wants to know, hey Joshua, I've pulled the S-Bus pad off of my Fortini F4 OSD flight controller. How do I connect my XM Plus receiver? The other pads are not compatible with FreeSky inversion. That's right, Cage. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to do the uninvert hack. So search Google for XM Plus uninvert hack. And that'll show you where to solder a wire on your XM Plus to get the uninverted S-Bus signal out of it. And you can connect that to any UART on the flight controller, and you can get the signal in. However, you need to tell the flight controller that you've done the uninvert hack. And you do that by going into the CLI and typing set space serial RX underscore inversion equals on, and then save. And that'll work for you. Tony Briz asks, Flight 1 has a motor test feature that tests motor thrust and braking. Does Betaflight have an equivalent one? No, it does not, Tony Briz. What Flight 1 does there is it spins the motors up. Maybe it even measures the RPM. I don't know. But I think it's looking at the gyro and looking at the vibration that the motors create when it spins the motor. It's a pretty cool thing because if the Flight 1 motor test basically gives you a score as to how healthy your motor is, Betaflight doesn't. You can do it manually. You can just raise the slider and see how much the gyro reads, but they don't have anything like Flight 1's. Odyssey FPV in the Discord asks, why do Cinewhoops have ducts? Why don't standard 5-inch quads have them? The answer is that ducts have a couple of effects. One is that ducts improve the efficiency of the prop. By forcing the air down through here and by getting rid of turbulence and moving it away from the prop, they improve the efficiency. The motor literally makes more thrust. The other is, of course, that this protects the props. It acts as a prop guard, although it's worth pointing out that ducts are always prop guards, but prop guards are not always ducts. Not all prop guards are effective at improving airflow. Like notice these ducts on these Shendron Squirt, they flare out at the outside. That's not cosmetic, that's functional. So the other reason is that Cinewhoops are often flown in proximity to actors, and you want prop guards on them to keep from injuring the actors. Never good. So then the other question is, why don't we use prop guards on 5-inch quads? And the answer is that prop guards severely compromise the agility of the quad. Prop guards, or rather ducts actually have a self-leveling effect that make the quad want to level out and rotate a lot slower. So you could put ducts on a 5-inch and you would get an improvement in efficiency, but most people who are flying 5 inches want that agility. NERC FPV? Is NERC here? Wait, really? Is NERC here? Or are you just mentioning NERC because of Cinewhoops? I don't see him in the chat. Ciati FPV is here. Ciati, going to be streaming tonight. Ciati, after me, I assume. He streams at 10 o'clock. So if I don't satisfy your need for streaming. Market A0 says, how many cycles should I expect from a 1S whoop battery? Market A0, I am sorry to say, not very many. Whoop batteries just do not last very long. And I think one of the biggest reasons they don't last long is that there's not an easy way to put a whoop battery at storage voltage. So when you finish flying for the night, all of your whoop batteries are either dead or fully charged, and then you just leave them that way until next time. And that's bad for them. I wish somebody would make a whoop charger that had a storage mode. I have been trying to find somebody to make one for me, and then I'm going to sell it with my name on it, and I'll make $1 million. But then no one, I've been through, like, no one will make one. How freaking hard is it? I don't know. JD Jaramillo wants to know, follow-up question about Cinewhoop. Should I go analog or DJI FPV for the Cinewhoop? One argument is that when you're working with a Cinewhoop, you are almost always targeting some kind of professional application. Yes, lots of us have Cinewhoops for fun, but a lot of times Cinewhoops are intended for commercial application. And for commercial application, the output from the DJI Air unit is just not going to satisfy. If it were used as a fallback, maybe in an emergency if you lost, but the GoPro footage is just so much better when you're targeting like a professional application. The DJI is a very, very good looking FPV feed, but it just can't match a GoPro in terms of image quality. So you assume that you're going to be running GoPro. At that point, could you say, well, I'm just going to run analog? Yeah, but DJI definitely has advantages, especially when you're flying in tight indoor environments. That video that we did with NERC, with the Cinewhoop, there was so much Wi-Fi and multipath. Analog was garbage in there. If you took your rapid fire out of mode 1, it was just like, you could barely see for all the white flashing. You put your rapid fire in mode 1 and it was tolerable. But DJI just didn't give a crap. DJI just looked fine. And if you're going to be flying in an environment like that, you're going to want to, maybe you're going to be flying in proximity and want to see all the details. And frankly, the additional weight, well, Cinewhoops aren't really doing acro stuff anyway, so maybe the additional weight doesn't matter much. So I have to say, I feel like for Cinewhoop application, I think that's one of the places where DJI makes more sense than analog. Like, it's not that you couldn't do it on analog, but the additional weight is one of the big downsides. And for Cinewhoops, I don't think that's as much a factor since you're not really trying to rip balls anyway. And as the Mighty Thor points out, DJI is better for proximity because you can just see so many more details. I really liked flying that Cinewhoop, just doing freestyle-y stuff. One of the most fun things about a whoop is the ability to just kind of rip it up and not worry about crashing quite as much. And I did that with a 3-inch Cinewhoop. It's not as durable as a 1S, but it was really fun. Techno Babbler says that. Where's Nurk? Hang on, Nurk. I'm going to make Nurk a moderator so his name stands out. What's Nurk saying? DJI Cinewhoop only for me now. I'll keep analog just in case. Okay, so Nurk agrees with me, and he does professional Cinewhoop stuff. So he would know. Let's get a couple more super chats out of the way. Thank you to everybody who's leaving super chats. If you don't know what that is, right down here. Now, I don't have it. I don't know why I don't have it, but there's a dollar sign for you right down here. Oh, I think somebody told me it's because when you pop out the chat, you don't have it. Well, I can't leave myself. I can't see the chat without popping it out. There's a dollar sign right down here. You can throw a couple bucks and get your question called out and make sure that I see it, because as you can see, this is going by pretty fast. Let's get a couple more of these out of the way. Sean Pringle, thank you for $5 in the super chat. What are your thoughts on rebuilding batteries to eliminate bad cells, Thrifty or Sketchy? Sean, I think it's Sketchy. If you have a 4S and you have a bad cell and it happens to be the first or the last cell, maybe that's worth doing. Most people are going to, it's going to be pretty risky. They don't know how to do it right. The biggest thing that you're missing is the spot welding tool that lets you solder to the tabs on the battery safely. You can do it with a hand soldering iron, but getting that joint to be robust and secure is really tricky if you don't have the right hardware. And then what do you get at the end of the day? It's pretty iffy to me. I think if you have the skill to do it right, then go for it, but most people don't. John Higginson, thanks for $5 Canadian. Just got a Nazgul 5 and I've flown it a few times. Haven't even replaced a prop yet and I'm getting no gyro. What troubleshooting should I do? John, I'm going to assume you didn't reflash the flight controller. If you flashed it and then you started getting no gyro, it just means you flashed the wrong target to the flight controller. I'm going to assume that you haven't really done anything to it and suddenly you started getting no gyro. I'm very sorry to say that means your flight controller is dying. I hope that you'll reach out to iFlight or to whoever you bought it from if they're a reputable vendor and they'll send you a replacement. That just shouldn't be happening. But I'm sorry to say that's probably what it is. Thank you for $2 Australian, Raven187, who liked the Dremel Rotor Riot video. And Twidget, thank you for $5 in this. Yeah, I got to Twidget. Is there an easy way to test whether a VTX boots up cleanly? I'm looking for other race-friendly VTXs that won't blast others on boot up. Well, Twidget, the right way to do it is with a spectrum analyzer, but those cost a lot of money and most of us don't have them. What I would do if I wanted to test whether a VTX boots up cleanly is I would have the VTX on like race 6 and have another VTX on like race 4. So don't have them like right on top of each other. And I would just power it up and look and see if I saw a flash. So, you know, you could easily do it with a couple of VTXs. You're going to want to space them out because if they're like right on top of each other, the power is going to be so high that you're not going to see it. Just create a scenario as if it were the real world, right? Put one of them approximately where it would be on the flight line and one of them like where it would be in the pit. Power it up and look for the flash. Just a little bit of easy experimentation. Ho Operator, thanks for $5 in the super chat. Ho Operator wants me to look at U.S. Tax Code Section 83. I don't know what that means, though. Thank you for your super chat. I have no idea. David Meyerlin. All right. Well, I'm going to check that out, Ho Operator, after I get off the stream. But for now, I'm going to leave it. Nurk FPV says, check that Nurk Cinewhoop Masterclass. All right, Nurk. Thank you for $2, Nurk FPV. If you want to get more into Cinewhoops, Nurk has a masterclass, Cinewhoop Everything You Wanted to Know. Let's check out his YouTube. Cinewhoop Masterclass, 6 tips to make amazing Cinewhoop videos. Let's get a better freeze frame than that. Nope, still not a good one. Nope. That's better. There we go. Smoldering eyes. There we go. You can learn more about Cinewhooping. Ben Trey, thanks for 99 cents. What else do we got? I'm looking at the Discord now. Looking for questions in the Discord. Sean S. FPV says, I'm starting a drone club for my college. Any thoughts on tiny whoops for quantity? My thought is they're lighter so they won't break on impact. Sean S., especially if you need to buy in quantity and if you're practicing indoors, tiny whoops are fantastic. You just want to find something that's inexpensive. The Tiny Hawk is a very good flying and durable. It's not a tiny whoop technically, but it's a good one. You could look at the newbie drone Acroby, which is another one. And of course, there's the original sort of legit tiny whoops, the Inductrix-based ones. But I tend to lean towards stuff with Betaflight on it, personally. The question is just, what can you get cheaply? I'll bet you could find, like, how does the price of like a Mobula 7 compare? What about a UR65? Like a Mobula 7 is $90. Hang on. I'm looking for the, how much is the UR65? What's like the cheapest? $80. See, that's not that much cheaper. What's like a really cheap brushed quad that you could buy like 20 of for your college and not break the bank? UAV Tech points out that brushless tiny whoops are more durable because the brush motors wear out. That is true, UAV Tech. It's true. If I were buying in quantity for students, I probably would assume they're going to get trashed anyway, and I would want to save money on them. Eachine 013. Let's try that. Thank you, Pokio, in the Discord. How much is the Eachine 013? Oh, I have one of these. I actually bought one of these. I don't remember where I bought it. This thing is actually not bad. This is not bad for $30, I gotta say. I can't remember where I ended up buying one of these. It wasn't for the channel. It was, I think maybe I bought it. I don't remember. This thing is not bad, and for $30, does it fly in acro mode? That's the question. This transmitter is crap, but it's still enough that for a total beginner, they can get in the air. And it's 1/3 the price of a Mobula. Eachine 010. This is the 013. Maybe I had the, I think I had the 010. Oh, yeah, it's the same thing, though. I think it can fly in acro mode. That's not bad. Check that out. Yeah. Moto 1 says there's no acro mode. That's a shame. That's a shame. Well, maybe not. Well, it's $30 though, so maybe it's worth something. Other than that, I don't think you're going to find a tiny whoop worth having for less than about. Oh, what about the new Eachine or what about the new Emax one? Hang on. Emax has a new trainer tiny whoop. Not the Tiny Hawk. Where is it? Emax Tiny Hawk? No. What is it called? Ah, phooey. I literally have this. I literally have this quad in a box in the other room. Emax has a new tiny whoop trainer that has like altitude control mode. And it comes in a box with goggles and a transmitter. It's probably more expensive than like the Eachine, but it flies way, way better. Emax X Pilot. Thank you, chat. I felt bad because they sent it. There it is. Is that really $100 for the kit? Damn, Emax is killing it. Okay, this is the one. Now, it's $110 for the kit. Comes with a transmitter and the goggles. It is an actual half-decent tiny whoop, and it has built-in training modes with altitude control and stuff. Very, very excited about this. It's $110, so you're probably not going to buy 20 of them for your college. Well, maybe you have the budget for it, but this would be the best value for money, no question. Let's see here. Easy Pilot. Thank you, guys. Yeah, Sean S. That's where your money is best spent. Now, you may not have the money to spend $110 per student, but that is no question the best value for your money in terms of getting something that's good to learn on, that will give a good flight experience. And if you can come up with $110 per student, yeah. So okay. Bold Clash BO3 Pro can fly acro when flashed with silverware. Yeah. John Pardue, thanks for $10 in the super chat. What beginner quad should I get after using Velocidrone for a few days with a QX7 radio? John, you got to ask yourself whether you feel like jumping straight into 5-inch or whether you want to do the micros. If you want to go through micros, the great thing about learning on micros is they're going to stay fun. It's not like you're going to outgrow them. Lots of people love to fly micros, even though they can also fly bigger quads. Micros are, I'm actually on the fence as to whether micros are the best way to learn, because people fly micros indoors, and flying indoors is actually way harder than flying outdoors. Learning to fly in a great big open field is the best way to fly, because there's nothing for you to crash into. So a micro, you have low stakes, but it's actually hard to fly them indoors, and it's hard to fly them outdoors because the wind blows you around. So there's certainly something to be said for jumping straight to a 5-inch if you spend enough time in the simulator to be confident. However, 5 inches crash much worse than micros. They crash okay, but you will break stuff and need to fix it. So I haven't really answered your question. If you want to go with a micro, I think the Emax Tiny Hawk is a fantastic starter. Newbie Drone just released a brushless Tiny Whoop. That would be really, really good. I haven't tested it myself, but Ciotti has flown it, and he says it's amazing, and Newbie Drone has a pretty good track record. Those are two to look at. If you're going 5 inches, the iFlight Nazgul is a very good ready-to-fly, bind and fly. And will bind to your QX7 if you get the RXSR or the XM Plus receiver. iFlight Nazgul is about $200 and is pretty good value for the money then. There's nothing wrong with saying, I've known people who spent a couple weeks in the simulator getting really confident, and then they just went to 5-inch. There's no reason you couldn't do that. Just be careful, like watch out for your arming switch and so forth. Don't hurt yourself. You don't learn how to put your props on in the simulator, right? You don't learn that if your radio's dangling around your neck while you're trying to pick the quad up and you bump the arm switch, then it cuts your fingers off, or, those things you can't learn in the simulator. So be safe, but go and learn to fly a 5-inch in the simulator is totally doable. Rebellion Above, thanks for $5. Keep being awesome. Thanks, Rebellion Above. You keep being awesome too. Ho Operator, thanks for $5. Ho Operator wants to know, are there any frames that allow for 2 double stacks? Because I'm running out of space. Ho Operator, if you want 2 30mm stacks, that's tough. I don't know of one off the top of my head that does that. Lots of them will give you a 20mm stack in the back. Yeah, I assume like the Catalyst Machine Works Smooth Operator. Does the Bang God give you 2 30mm stacks? I think it does. Try looking at the Bang God, Ho Operator. The Catalyst Machine Works Bang God. Ho Operator. Ho Operator, I think your ideas about tax code 83, I suspect that the IRS doesn't agree with them. And here's the thing. Ho Operator's giving me some tax advice about something that he thinks somebody out there thinks I shouldn't be paying taxes on certain things. You hear stories of, ask Wesley Snipes about how that went for him. You hear all these stories about people who think that certain things shouldn't be taxable. But if the IRS thinks that they should be taxable, it don't matter a bit what it says on the books or what your dude you saw on the internet says. When the IRS comes, they expect to be paid. And if you don't pay them, you go to jail. So I'm just going to do whatever my accountant tells me to do. I assume that if tax code 83 meant I didn't have to pay taxes, she would already have told me that. And if she didn't, it's probably because the IRS will put me in jail if I don't pay taxes. So I'm going to let that one go. Kyle K says, I'm not just supposed to say every lunch is a business lunch with no proof. Yeah. UAV Tech points out the Martian 2 lets you get 2 flight controllers high. Kuman person. I had to carefully spound that out to make sure I wasn't about to say something offensive without realizing it. I'm having trouble taking sharp turns without gaining altitude. Any tips? So there are a couple things that can cause that. What happens, the reason you're gaining altitude when you make sharp turns is you dive into the turn and you jam the throttle to try and change directions, but you haven't pitched forward enough. You're pitched back. And so when you jam the throttle, the quad pops up. This is, in some respect, just a matter of practice and experience. If you use a throttle curve to make your quad less powerful, then it'll help with that because you'll just get more resolution. The reason a lot of people struggle with this is because if your hover point is like 30% because you have a really powerful, really lightweight quad, it makes it really hard to take turns smoothly like that because you just overshoot every time. So have a less powerful quad is the place I would start. You can use a throttle limit in Betaflight. In the command line, you can set up a throttle limit, and it basically dials your quad down a little and lets you try and dial that in. If you don't want to do that, then take the advice of Odyssey FPV. Slam that nose down, baby. Here's another thing that could cause the problem. If you don't have a ton of up tilt, when you go into the sharp turn, you may be trying to keep the horizon in view. But in order to be able to turn sharply, you have to pitch forward a lot so that when you raise the throttle, it pushes you through the turn and not up in the air. So if you don't have a ton of up tilt, then you got to be staring at the ground. You can't really be looking at the horizon in order to move through that turn. Yeah, pitch forward more. FPV Lovecraft says, what's the correct way to get current working on Betaflight 4.1? I thought when RPM filtering can be the motor wires are going to give us the info with no current wire. No, that is incorrect. FPV Lovecraft, bidirectional D-Shot gives you RPM information only. It does not give you the other information that comes with ESC telemetry like current sense or ESC temperature. It only gives RPM. The correct way to get current working depends on your ESC and your flight controller. If your ESC and flight controller support analog current sense, then that's one way to do it. If they support ESC telemetry, it would be the other way. Let's see here. Nads FPV says 4-in-1 ESC and flight controller continually rebooting after a small crash. I removed the flight controller and the PC does not see it. Thinking it's a short in the flight controller, but would you expect the 4-in-1 is trashed as well? Well, Nads, if there was a short circuit in the flight controller, it would also cause the ESC to reboot because the voltage would drop. So since you disconnected the flight controller from the ESC, plug the battery in and see if the ESC reboots. That's what I would do. I'm almost out of iced tea, so when I run out of tea, that's the end of the live stream. No. JWWFPV, thanks for $10 in the super chat. Thank you guys for your generosity in the super chat. Philip, no question from JWW. Philip Radelic, Philip, thank you for 25 HRK. I don't actually know what an HRK is. What's an HRK? It is a Croatian Kuna. Oh, Croatia, makers of the Orca FPV goggles. Philip, thank you for 25 Croatian Kuna. I think the Newbie Drone Ready to Fly kit would have to be the best value because it's a decent radio that can also be used with a sim. It's $170 now. Philip, I think Newbie Drone makes great gear, but you cannot tell. I don't know how you can tell me that $110 for this versus, let's give Newbie Drone a fair shake. The Newbie Drone RTF kit, I reviewed this, so I know from whence I speak. The Newbie Drone kit is, it's good. It's good. And now they've marked it down to $170. But it was $200. And I compared that to the Emax Tiny Hawk kit, which was $160. And I said, I'm sorry, I just don't know why you would pay $40 more for this. Now, Newbie Drone made the argument to me. They were like, well, our gimbals on our radio are better. And we have, I think they have diversity. I'm not sure. They made some arguments about why theirs was better. And I was like, okay, but for $40, I'm not sure I see it. One of the things that is being pointed out in the chat by people like 661FPV or Philip Radlick is that the Newbie Drone bundle can plug directly into your computer. You can plug this transmitter into your computer and it'll let you use the simulator. Yeah, that's okay, but you can also do that with any Betaflight quadcopter. Any Betaflight quad, you don't have to even plug it into the computer. The quadcopter, the flight controller, acts as the adapter. So you can also use the Emax one with a simulator. And when you look at the price difference, this is $110. This is $170. $60 price difference. I don't think this is bad, but especially for like a college drones program that needs to buy 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 and get the most for its budget, I don't see how you can argue that the Newbie Drone is the right choice. I just don't. Especially because the Newbie Drone is it brushed? This is the brushed one, right? This is the brushed one. It's not even brushless. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't know. Wait, Emax Easy Pilot doesn't run Betaflight. So no, oh, sorry, Philip. Good. Thank you for pointing that out, Philip. The Easy Pilot doesn't run Betaflight. All right. Well, then we have to go to the. How much is the Tiny Hawk RTF these days? Here's the Tiny Hawk RTF kit for $150. So that's at least closer. Like that's closer. Okay. The Tiny Hawk kit, it can be used with the simulator. Yeah, I know that for a fact. But now the price difference is only $20, and now I think you could go either way. So, yeah, okay. Easy Pilot doesn't have acro? No, come on, Budget FPV. Is that for real? I'm so disappointed. I mean, I know that they have all the. They really don't have acro. 661 FPV says the Newbie Drone's better than the Easy, but not better. I mean, I was picking on the Easy Pilot just because, I mean, I literally haven't researched it very much, just read about it. I'm surprised if it doesn't have acro mode at all. Damn. All right, I take it back then. I hope everyone watching the replay watches to this point. If it doesn't have acro, then I wouldn't take it. But I still think you would have to ask yourself whether the Tiny Hawk kit, how it compares to the Acrobeat Lite. I think that the gimbals are better on the Newbie Drone, and it can be used as a simulator. But I feel like the ergonomics of the Emax I prefer. I found that this controller was a little hard to hold, and it's still brushless versus brushed. But I think it's a lot closer. Now that Newbie Drone's brought it down from $200, I think it's a lot closer. Eric FPV says, I don't fully get why brushed motors are still being put on quads. Yeah. So it used to be that if you wanted to get down to the tiny whoop size, nobody made brushless motors that small. It's just like they literally didn't exist. Now that we can get brushless motors in like the 07 size, and even Newbie Drone, who has been one of the last holdouts of brushed motors, has released a brushless tiny whoop, I think that we're moving away from it. Captain Calgary says the goggles with the newbie drone are better than the Max set. Captain Calgary, that's a tough one for me. I do think they're bigger and more comfortable on the face than the Emax goggles. The Emax goggles, I think, are better built. They're more sturdy. The newbie drone goggles are kind of like this floppy, loose plastic. The screen on the newbie drone is decent. Yeah. When they're only $20 apart, I think you could go either way. When they were $200 for the newbie drone and $160 for the Emax, to me it was no question. Wiccan FPV, there has been no news from Bitefrost, as far as I know. Philip, thanks for another $10 donation to correct me about the about not having controller mode. I'm sorry you had to spend $10 to correct that. I feel like I should refund you, but I don't know that I can do that. Noisy Bird FPV wants to know if DShot 1200 is overrated. Well, it doesn't matter if you run Betaflight because Betaflight doesn't support it anymore. Yeah, Betaflight 4.1 got rid of DShot 1200, and the reason, more or less, is that in order to do bidirectional DShot, they had to get rid of it. And I think that's a trade-off every single one of us would be willing to make, because I will bet you couldn't tell the difference between DShot 600 and DShot 1200 on two equal setups. But I will bet you there are lots of cases where you could tell the difference between a quad with RPM filtering and a quad without. Crazy Frog says, I was practicing rolls, and I'm pretty sure I kicked the quad into a runaway disarm. Is there something wrong with my quad? Crazy Frog, let's take a look at your video here. Oh, this is, haha, I've accidentally skipped to the wrong video. But since I skipped to it, I'll show you guys. This is me practicing with my DJI Mavic Mini, getting some cinematic shots. How am I doing? What do you think? Does that look cinematic? Huh? Look at that cinematic cinema. Looks pretty good. I mean, the camera looks pretty good. Oh, let's do a close pass. Oh. Okay, now I get to practice with the camera gimbal. This is footage from the DJI Mavic Mini. I accidentally brought this footage up while trying. See, now I'm tilting the gimbal down. Try to match my upward motion. Anyway. What did I mean to do? This is what I meant to bring up. Let's have a look here and see if we can figure out what happened. So I saw low battery. Oh, so the first question that Crazy Frog asked is, did the quad have a runaway situation? A runaway situation happens when the quad is moving and the flight controller can't control its motion. So, for example, if you, well, anyway, anytime that, so, I'm not sure how I want to explain that. One of the times I've had a runaway situation is when I took off, and immediately after takeoff, I hit a branch, and the quad went, ugh! And the flight controller went, hey, what's going on? And it just shuts down. Runaway is designed to protect against the case where you've got your props on wrong or your motor's spinning the wrong direction and the quad flips out and tries to fly away. But it can also trigger in the air. Especially if you have your throttle all the way down and you're doing sharp moves, it can trigger in the air because there can just not be enough authority to control the quad. The way that runaway prevention works, though, is once your throttle gets over a certain point, it's disabled. So, we can see you going to high throttle here, and we can assume that after 3 minutes of flying, runaway prevention was probably disabled. However, we can know for a fact that runaway prevention wasn't what caused this, because you see how down on the bottom of the screen it just said low battery. That's your warnings element. And when the quad flips out, we do not see the word runaway down here at the bottom of the screen. So it wasn't runaway. So then the question is, what happened? And what I would look for in situations like this is, where did the quad move first? We're going to do the roll. Okay. Now I'm going to go frame by frame, and I'm going to watch. We're rolling. Watch the horizon. We're rolling. We're about to try to stop the roll, and this is where it's all going to go wrong. Ready? We're stopping the roll. Here, the roll has stopped. We see low battery. 3.63 volts. That's not that big a deal, though. Now we're rolling right. Wait, did I miss? Oh, I'm sorry. That was the wrong one. This is the right one. My bad. That was the wrong one. So we got one roll, and then... Okay, here we go. I'm going to look for the horizon to start to go wrong. Oh, shit, you guys. I'm sorry. Boop. That's better. Here goes the roll. See, we haven't got to the good part yet. Whoa. VLC has crapped out on me. VLC doesn't like it when I go full frame. When I go frame by frame. Here we go. One and... Here. So here we're out of control. And which way is it rolling? It's yawing left. Oof, that's a tough one. I'm trying to figure out which motor went bad. It looks like it yawed left there for a minute. One. And... Oof. It looks to me like the front right motor dropped out. It looks like the quad rolls toward the front right. It's very tough to tell, but... When it very first starts, it looks like it rolls toward the front right. So to me, yeah, front right prop, says Drade. Front right prop is twirling in the wind. And that means that the front right motor, or ESC, stopped making thrust. But the question is why? That's a tough one. It could be a damaged motor or AC, and that's the first place I go. If it always rolls the same direction, that's a damaged motor or ESC. And you swap the motor, and if that doesn't fix it, you swap the ESC. Jamie Levy wants to know, does the ring inside the HDO2s distract you at all? To me, I don't notice it. I'm just too busy enjoying flying. You're not the only one, Jamie Levy, who feels like you're looking out a porthole. But personally, I don't really notice it. Tony Briz says, this is where the Flight 1 motor test feature might be helpful. I wish Betaflight had a similar feature. It would be nice, wouldn't it? Okay. Drone Shots wants to know, what's the best LiPo charger, and do you have a link? I do. Drone Shots, anytime you want to know about my hardware recommendations, check out the Ultimate FPV shopping list at fpvknowitall.com. There is a section on batteries and charging, and you can find my charger recommendations there. My current all-around favorite is the HobbyMate D6 Duo, for the reasons that I talk about here. I just think, I think you get a really good value for money there. And if you don't need the AC input, the HobbyMate Duo D6 Duo, there's a DC only. Wait a minute. Oh, that's the DC version. The DC version is about $100, and it's pretty good. Nix wants to know if I've been flying the Acrobat much. I have not been flying the Acrobat. I only just got back from Thanksgiving with my family, and I have some 850 milliamp hour batteries that I got from Luminaire. I got the Xylo 850 milliamp hour packs. I hadn't had very many packs to fly it with. The question that Nix asks is, are you finding that you prefer different rates to your 5-inch setups? I am, Nix. You're 100% right there. I've found that the Acrobat feels like it has much higher rates, even though I know for a fact the rates are the same. So I do feel like taking the rates down a little bit on the Acrobat compared to my 5 inches. 661 FPV says, Ladrib told me to use turtle mode to test motors. I cut my finger the first time I tried it. You can use turtle mode to test the motors. You just put it in turtle mode, you arm, and then, you just bump the stick. Don't cut your finger, though. Cement Kid wants to know if I've considered building a 6S micro. Cement Kid, I haven't. I'm just getting into like the Acrobat stuff myself. But Tommy Umagod, the inventor of the Acrobat, told me his favorite Acrobat to fly is a 6S. I'm not sure what motors he said he used, but he loves the 6S Acrobat. So, I mean, who would know better than him? Saucy Beast Mode wants to know if I have any more thoughts on the Bang God. My Bang God, I like it, but with the DJI Air unit and the 2208 motors and the Hero 7, it weighs like 800 grams, and that hurts. That hurts, man. That really hurts. 800 grams is a lot. I mean, I would like to be under 700 grams, ideally. So... Thoughts on hybrid race frames? No. Heavy FPV wants to know if Rotorite blaster motors are going to have a continuation. Heavy FPV, I asked that same question of Drew the last time I was in Orlando because I'm flying the blaster motors on my HD1 build. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, there's no reason to pay whatever, $29. They're like $29 motors, but you get the replacement program, so it all works out, and you come out ahead if you wreck motors. But if the replacement program ends in December, then why would you do that? I think it would be silly for them to continue selling them now at that price if they weren't going to extend the program. But since they haven't made an announcement, I really can't say any more than that. I hope that they soon make an announcement about the future of the blaster program, because last I checked, Rotorite blaster motors are $27, and this is a fine motor, but you can get way better motors if you're willing to pay $27. I mean, to my mind, this is a $15 or $18 motor that you're paying $27 for because it comes with the replacement program. But if the replacement program ends in December, then you shouldn't pay $27 for it because you're not going to get your money's worth out of it. Where's the Fly More? I don't think they made any announcements, though. So stop buying them, and they'll notice that you stopped buying them, and they'll make an announcement. That's what I would say. Kidrone wants to know, what are my experiences in terms of quality control with Hobbywing? Kidrone, what I can tell you is that Alex Vanover flew the Hobbywing 65 amp ESC for his race season, his multi-GP race season, and recommends it wholeheartedly. Now, some people out there will say, Hobbywing is his sponsor. Of course he recommends them. And you, my friend, have it exactly backwards. A racer on the level of Alex Vanover, Alex, if you're out there, don't listen to this part. He's really good. He could have any equipment sponsor he wants. If you think if Alex went to any ESC manufacturer and said, do you want to sponsor me? They would be like, yes. So he picks Hobbywing because, not because they sponsor him, he lets them sponsor him because they make good gear. He flew the Hobbywing 65 amp ESC for the whole race season. He said it was amazing. He said, I was like, would you say it's bulletproof? And he said, well, I mean, you hit a gate. Eventually you're going to pop an ESC, but he vouched for its durability, and I just don't know how you could get a better endorsement than that. So, Hobbywing, very good ESC. Says Vanover, and that's good enough for me. Nordic Rage Gamer says, my drone flips out when I roll and yaw in the same time. Anyone know how to fix this? Nordic Rage Gamer, check your idle speed. Maybe your idle speed's too low and one of your motors is stuttering because it's idling too low. I'm afraid that black box is going to be needed to get more information. Pardon me. I have a hiccup. James Kilpatrick, thanks for $5 in the super chat. No question from James. Just love the content. Keep doing what you do. Thank you, James. Yeah, Caesar FPV points out that the Hobbywing 60 amp ESC, it's overkill for almost everybody. Nobody needs a 60 amp ESC. Think about that. 60 amps per motor times 4 motors is 240 amps. You don't have a battery that can supply 240 amps for very long. Nobody needs a 60 amp ESC. Almost nobody. But if you're only pulling 35 or 40 amps and you have a 60 amp ESC, it's going to give you additional durability. Mike Catiz in the Discord is trying to pick a frame for DJI. Says, my current frame won't work. I don't want to keep switching frames. Any suggestions? I'm working on, and now that my website moved today to a new host and a new backend, and now that it's moved, I don't have any excuse not to update it. There are a whole bunch of updates I've been holding off on until this change got made because I didn't want to update the old website while we were in the process of changing over. But I have a section on my shopping list for DJI, and I have a couple frames in here. One is the Rotoride HD1. It's pretty bare bones, but it's solid. One is the Banggood from Catalyst Machine Works, and of course there's the Impulse RC Apex. You can get the DJI controller into the TBS Source 1. I believe you still have to remove standoffs to do it. There are a few others. I mean, there's many others, but those are some that are worth considering. Jamie Levy, thanks for $5. Just says thanks for all the videos. Gramps Ramblings, if the audio and video are out of sync, the only thing I can suggest is reload the stream, I guess. Kyle K, what was wrong with Squarespace anyways? Well, I mean, if you really want to know, Squarespace is... and you can't talk about Squarespace on the internet without it feeling like you're about to launch into a Squarespace commercial. But no, I was a customer of Squarespace, but Squarespace did not pay me for advertising or anything like that. Squarespace was really easy to set the website up. It's so good if you want to have a good-looking, basic website. Even has e-commerce, although I didn't use that. But the problem is that there were things I wanted to do that it didn't make it possible to do. And WordPress has plugins for everything. You name it, you can do it with WordPress. So there were certain layout things I wanted to do that Squarespace just didn't support. And there were certain things like on the final straw for me is that Google has started penalizing websites that load slowly in search results. And one of the ways to make your website load faster is to use different image formats. Squarespace didn't support, I think like JPEG 2000 is one of the ones. Squarespace just doesn't support it. But if it did support it, I would have to manually re-upload all my images to this new format. Whereas this other person I know who had a WordPress site just downloaded a WordPress plugin that automatically and transparently converted all her images to JPEG 2000. And that's all she had to do. And I was like, fine, I'm switching to WordPress. So now I'm on WordPress. Sorry for the slurping, guys. Renegade FPV, I do not think DJI is going to release a smaller air unit by Christmas. I don't see that happening. I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. I don't see it. Macy says, "Hi Joshua, I have an old Omnibus F4 with a pin labeled RC in. What is this?" That is for the receiver. So you would put S-Bus, depending on what receiver you have. Usually the RC in pin does either S-Bus or PPM on the old Omnibuses. If you're using FreeSky and you're using S-Bus, put S-Bus on the RC in pin. However, you might need to do some fiddling with jumpers depending on which version of the Omnibus it is. Okay. Caesar FPV says, "You were wrong about HD FPV video." No, Caesar, I wasn't. And if there were any other questions, the chat has slowed down a tiny bit. If there were any other questions coming in, I'd answer them. But since you brought it up and since there's no other questions, Caesar FPV, I wasn't wrong about HD FPV video. I outlined all of the challenges that had to be overcome. And what I said in that video was, it will cost so much money to overcome these challenges that doesn't make sense for anybody to do it, right? And DJI is actually proof that I was right, because DJI is not making money off the system. There's no way that they're making money off their FPV system by selling it to FPV pilots. Our market is too small. The only way that it could happen was that somebody like DJI thought of some other way that they could make money off of it, and incidentally, it made sense for them to make it for us in the meantime. That being said, DJI did not overcome all of the problems I listed in that video, although, to be fair, they overcome more of them than I would have seen. Why does it take one of my quads longer to initialize? Asks Ben Watkins. Ben, that depends on the gyro. The gyro, if it's a little bit noisier, may take a little bit longer to finish its calibration. Don't sweat it as long as it initializes in the end, and as long as it flies fine. Ian Bible in the super chat. Thank you for $5, Ian. Ian is from Knoxville, as I am, and Ian says, "Whoop race this Saturday is going to be a blast. We are having a whoop race called the Rip and Sip. It's indoors, so back off, FAA. It's at a brew pub outside of Knoxville, and we're going to have a whoop race, and we're going to drink alcohol because that's allowed when you're indoors. That's not prohibited. And it's going to be really fun." Ian goes on to say, "Knoxville, where champions are made." And Ian is right that both of the winners of Multi-GP Nationals are from Knoxville. Both the sportsman and the pro class are from Knoxville. So Knoxville holds the title. Nix in the Discord says, "In your Orca review, there was a line about how the Orca team sees them as fitting into the digital FPV age. Any other comments on like how this would work, like a receiver module to put the signal into the goggles?" Nix, I can tell you that as of today, the way that Orca is fitting into the digital age is that they're making sure that they're 100% compatible with Bitefrost. Even though Bitefrost is a product released by a competitor, Orca is once, if you think that Bitefrost is where you're going in the future, then Orca wants them to be the goggle you go with, not the HDO2. But that's, I think it's safe to say they have bigger plans than that. I don't know what those plans are. And that's not a, like, I secretly do know, but I'm not telling you. No, I just don't know. They haven't told me anything. But the read that I get from them is that they would like to have their own digital system, and they would like to integrate it into the Orca goggles in a way that Fat Shark doesn't. Whether they'll pull that off, I don't know. That's the read that I get. Jamie Levy wants to know, what DVR do you use with your goggles? Two DVRs that I think are worth looking at, Jamie. You're going to choke when you see how much they cost, though. This is the Luminaire Dx 600 DVR. It's $100 frickin' bucks. It's out of stock. I hope they're still making it, but this thing is really nice. It's a self-contained DVR. It doesn't drop frames. It doesn't go out of sync. And the number one thing it does that I love is that it records audio, not from the quad, which all DVRs should do that. It has a microphone built in and it records local audio. So if I'm flying and I'm talking, it's easy to sync that up with... I usually don't use the audio because it's not very good quality, but it's easy to sync the video up. I can just say, you know, flight number 1, sync, clap, and now all my video is synced up. That's the Luminaire Dx 600. The other one that I've been playing with is the Immersion RC Power Play. This guy is a new product from Immersion RC. It's $90. It's a very good DVR, 60 frames per second, H.264 recording, all that good stuff. The big thing that the Power Play has is it has built-in batteries. It comes with, there must be inside it. It has batteries built in. There you go. 18550, I believe they are, and you can power your goggles from it. You can put it in your pocket, or you can clip it to the back of your goggles. The Power Play, I think, is better than the Luminaire, but I wish the Power Play had a microphone built in. I'm so sorry they didn't do that. It would beat the Luminaire. I think for most people, the Power Play is the better bet. It's a good quality DVR. And the lack of audio, I think most people aren't going to notice. However, I got to tell you, I mean, like, there are other cheaper DVRs. Like, most people shouldn't spend $90 or $100 on a freaking standard definition DVR. Blech. Jesse T says, I really wish the Power Play used 18650s. Yeah, there's a 3D printed case, a 3D printed rear cover that Immersion RC is going to release. If they haven't already, it was on their Facebook page, and it lets the batteries go in at a diagonal angle, and that gets 650s in there. So, Dusty Nuts for Sale says, I can see TBS buying Orca. I mean, I guess you can't rule anything out. You can't rule anything out. It would be interesting because TBS doesn't make a goggle. And TBS with the Fusion module, that might be an interesting move. I wonder what it would cost for them to buy Orca, though. Yeah. It would be interesting to know how much that would cost and how much TBS would have to do to get that. Yeah, okay. Does Orca have a manual, asks Jacob Swell, and where can I find it? Jacob, I can tell you that my Orcas came with... yeah, no, it has a manual. My Orcas came with a link, a QR code that linked to a manual, but it was 404. Oh, so it was emailed to me. Let's see if they fixed it. Orca FPV1 manual. Where's the manual? Oh, here we go. So I just Googled Orca FPV1 manual, and bingo, here it is. Jacob Swell. There's the Orca manual. You can check it out there. Amen Ra says, can I check on the buzzer pads on a powered Crazy F4 board with a voltmeter to figure out why the beeper no longer works? Amen Ra, when the beeper is active, you should measure 5 volts between the beeper pads. You should always measure 5 volts between buzzer plus and ground. The buzzer minus pad is switched on and off. The simplest way to test a beeper is to solder the beeper to 5 volts and ground, and it will go off continuously. I'm sorry, guys. There we go. Solder the buzzer to 5 volts and ground, and it'll go off continuously. And that tells you the buzzer works. So, Decodester tried flashing 411, but it says my flight controller doesn't have enough storage. Decodester, I think you're trying to flash it to a flight controller like an F3 flight controller that isn't supported under 411. I think you're using the wrong target. What flight controller is it, Decodester? D Sims says, anybody know where the list of parts for building my first quad? D Sims, yes, here's what I would recommend. This is my Learn to Build series. It takes you through building and configuring a racing drone from the very first solder joints all the way to flying. It is over a year old now. I am working on updating it, but I have to say that all of the information in it is still pretty up to date. I guess some of the Betaflight stuff has changed a little. Oh yeah, if you're using Betaflight 4.1, It doesn't go over VTX tables. Well, anyway, I still stand by these parts. These are good parts. The Samcook motors aren't made anymore, but you can still buy them. Damn it, I got to update that. Okay. I still think you should do it, but I got to update that soon. Tom Muleman Jr. wants to know if DJI is going to release the Mavic 3 at the end of the year. I don't know anything about that, Tom. I don't know anything about that. So, like, I really don't know anything about that. Amin Ra says the buzzer works, but switching from the radio stopped working. So, Amin Ra, what you're going to want to do is check in the Betaflight modes tab when you move the switch, whether the buzzer mode, or is it beeper, turns yellow. And that will tell you that the flight controller is intending to make the thing beep. The other thing to look at is in the configuration tab, there is a beeper section that lets you disable certain beeper functions and not others. And one of those functions controls whether the quad will beep when you activate the beeping mode. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, Decodester, you're trying to flash Betaflight to an F3. Betaflight doesn't support F3 processors anymore in 4.11 or 4.1. And then you tried to flash it anyway, even though your target isn't there, and it said not enough space. So number one, never screw around flashing the wrong target to the flight controller, because it won't work. It's not going to somehow work. Always flash the right target, and if the flight controller isn't in the list, it means it's not supported. It is worth pointing out, though, UAV Tech, who is in the chat right now, has what's called a performance edition of Betaflight 4.1, which is a stripped down edition of 4.1 with some features missing, but the flight related features are there. If you get the performance edition by going to UAV Tech's channel on YouTube, he's got a video about it. You can flash it to your F3 and you can still get Betaflight 4.1. Let's see. UAV Tech. Where's the performance edition? There it is. 1 month ago. Hey, Mark, what is this? It's been a month. You only got 3 videos out. Come on, Mark. Step your game up. No, I'm just teasing. So I'll put this link in the chat. If you have an F3 flight controller and you still want to use Betaflight 4.1, this is what you want. Mr. Sprinkles, I'm so glad you kept re-asking your question, but not so much that you spammed the chat. I've seen your question and I haven't quite gotten to it, so I'm going to get it now. Mr. Sprinkles says, when I bind my Tiny Hawk Freestyle with button or CLI, Betaflight says the quad is in bind mode, but it's not. So, Mr. Sprinkles, do the LEDs, like, I can't remember on that quad, do they go solid on the Tiny Hawk Freestyle when you bind, or do they start blinking? I think they start blinking, and then they go solid when you bind. If they start blinking, then you're in bind mode, right? So then if you're not able to bind, it's something else. So I guess, Mr. Sprinkles, what I would ask is, you say it's not in bind mode. Like, what do the LEDs indicate? The red and the blue should be flashing, but only the red flashes. I mean, I assume you've tried to bind it and it hasn't worked. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the flight controller may be borked. Did the flight controller ever work? It's Gumby says my quad randomly does a half roll. It's Gumby, that is almost always going to be a bad motor or ESC stuttering. You can try raising the idle speed on the motor, but it's probably a damaged motor or ESC. Jesse T says my Tiny Hawk Freestyle had trouble binding, then the flight controller died. Yeah. I'm sorry to say, Mr. Sprinkles, it used to work fine, and now it sounds like your flight controller is going. So I'm sorry to say that. I know that's not what the answer that you wanted to hear. KS Air wants to know if you're accidentally pushing the VTX button. Yeah, but he would have known that. He would have known that because he's done it before. D Sims, thanks for $2 in the super chat. Super overwhelmed with FPV. Need advice for a noob. I mean, where to start, my friend? Contact me on Facebook, and we'll try and help you out with your problems. Message me on Facebook. Tony Briz points out, Technobabbler in the Discord says, should I stop buying F4s for fear of no more support in the future? Technobabbler, it's not. I think that's not a bad question. Betaflight has dropped support for F3s in 4.1. When did it drop support for F1s? It was a while back. I don't think that F4s are going to go away like soon, but it's definitely worth thinking whether you want to buy an F4 or an F7 today. The price difference is not that much depending on what you're looking at, and F7s certainly give a lot more flexibility, especially if you're going to be running things like RPM filtering, which take up a lot of processor cycles. But Tony Briz goes on to say, you'll probably crash and break it before F4 becomes obsolete. And Tony's not wrong. Ask yourself, how long do my flight controllers typically last? If they typically last 6 months, then yeah, buy an F4. Betaflight's not going to be obsoleted in the next 6 months. But if you intend for it to last like 1 or 2 years, then I would definitely go F7. Yep. We're coming up on the end of the stream. It's 9:53 p.m. At 10 p.m., I go off the air, and Ciotti FPV, Aaron Ciotti, is going to be streaming tonight. I assume he is. He usually streams at 10 o'clock on Mondays. Ciotti's in the chat, and Ciotti, if you want to start, what are you doing tonight, Ciotti? He'll tell us, I'm sure. Yeah, the real question is, like, F4 may be supported in Betaflight 4.2, but what if 4.2 has some fancy new feature that F4 just isn't fast enough to run? Ciotti's going to do a giveaway tonight. Pray for me. Ciotti, make sure you look up those YouTube terms of service and guidelines and don't screw it up, dude. Going to do a giveaway. Okay, good. Adam Bostwick says, do you have any future plans to make your flight controller an F7? Yes. My goal is to have something out before Chinese New Year. My goal was going to be to have something out. You may have seen me talk about it earlier. There have been some issues and some, well, anyway. Yeah. Fingers crossed. The question is, does the F4 make it flyable enough for the near future? Yeah, Evil Bunny, for sure. It's totally flyable. F4 is fine, but for future-proofing, F7 is better. Hrothgar Wrecker says, I just got a Remix V2 and I'm still working through component placement and fitment. I'm thinking about putting a Rush Tank VTX in between the top and bottom plates, but to do this, it has to be placed directly on the carbon. Will this cause any video interference? No, that's fine. Do I need electrical isolation? Yes. So you definitely don't want bare circuit boards and components up against carbon. You'll get a short circuit. It'll be damaged. But if you want to use something like extreme mounting tape to mount it straight to the carbon, that's fine. Ciotti is posting links to his stream. Don't go yet. I'm not quite done. But Ciotti's going to be taking over when we're done here. Could a receiver cause the random half roll? It's Gumby says the same receiver has done it on 2 quads. It's Gumby, in general, I wouldn't expect a receiver to cause a random half roll. However, if the same receiver's done it on 2 quads, I would junk that receiver and see about that. Yeah. Joe Gray's FPV. Any news about your F7 flight controller yet? No news, Joe. I'm trying to think about what to say without giving away more details than is prudent. We have been working for a long time on an F7 version of my flight controller. It was taking way too long. And as a result of that, we went back to the drawing board. We have reshuffled a few things, but we also kind of started from scratch. The problem is that the design we came up with for my updated flight controller, it took so long to do the prototyping and testing that by the time we got to the point where the manufacturer was like, okay, let's go. And we were like, we don't feel good about this. I was like, I'll speak for myself. I was like, I don't feel good about this flight controller. If we produce this flight controller, I'm not going to feel great about promoting it and putting my name on it. And to their credit, I make my flight controller in partnership with Race Day Quads. Race Day Quads basically puts up all the money and does all the sales and all the customer support. And I do, I make the manual and I help with the design. And Tyler said, screw it. If you don't feel good about it, let's just wipe the whole slate clean and start from scratch. I was like, really? Can we do that? He was like, yeah, I don't care. So kudos to him. But what it means is that the flight controller I was talking about us coming out with like 2 months ago, it's gone. And now the clock is reset. But hopefully the things that were making it take for freaking ever aren't going to be true anymore. And my goal would be to have something for sale before Chinese New Year, which is in like February. So. Marcos Huerta, I got the new Acrobat Duo 3-inch. Would you go with F4 or F7? I mean, money, no object. Always go F7. Corey Schroeder, who makes the CPUs for flight controllers? They're made by STM. STM. Who is STM? Something microcontrollers. Yep. Who is STM? It's these guys. All right. About ST. There we go. Anybody? No. Who is this company? I have no idea. Anyway, that's who it is. ST Micro. That's who makes them. All right, guys, it's 2 minutes to the hour. Aiden Rocky, help JB. If you had $200 for the Rotor Riot CL1 budget build, should you buy it? Aiden, anytime you can get a solid built quad for $200, I mean, you're probably doing okay. The Tyro builds are only 100, like the Tyro 79. Those things are only $100 and you give up a lot, but okay. But I feel like $200 is the cheapest that you could get like a decent quality quad that like is going to not just disappoint you in so many ways. The Rotor Riot CL1 budget build for $200, definitely a solid piece of work. And you know that it was built and tuned by Jeff Orta himself. So that's good. You're certainly going to want to be looking at other $200 stuff like the iFlight Nazgul, which you're not going to get the kind of support that you would get from Rotor Riot. But certainly, I mean, it's certainly out there, and it's $200 as well. Master Fu says the CL1 budget build is a stupid good deal. Yeah, I mean, if you're in the market for $200, oh no, it's 10 o'clock. Ciati's starting. I have to finish up quickly. Like, the Rotor Riot budget build, that's not bad. Like, what are you getting? Hype Train motors? Those are solid motors. What motors are those? You really could get the Acro? Oh my god, those are great motors. I would say those are better than the motors on the Nazgul. It's a flight controller. I can't tell. Like, that's solid for $200. Too bad it's out of stock. Transtech F7 flight controller? Jeez. This ESC, I'm not thrilled about the HDLRC ESC. I don't like HDLRC electronics very much. I think they're questionable quality. The ESC is the last thing I would buy from HDLRC. I like taking HDLRC VTX maybe, but not any. Anyway, it's not bad. That's pretty good. Would I take that over the Nazgul? You'll have to wait until next week to find out. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Ciati FPV has started his stream, I'm sure. It's 10 o'clock. If you want to stream some more, go check out Aaron Ciati. Post your link one more time. If you're there, you go. Thank you, Ciati. Sorry for going long. Ciati, post your link one more time if you guys want to see him do some streaming. He's doing a giveaway. What more do you want? Get on over there. I'll see you guys Sunday at 1 p.m. Thank you guys for coming out. This coming Sunday at 1 p.m. It will be my next live stream. Looking forward to seeing you guys on the channel all week. But that's going to do it for now. I am out of here. Happy flying, everybody.